My name is Sierra Monroe. I'm 36, a chef, and for 14 years, the heart behind Monroe's Hearth, our family's restaurant nestled in the food-loving streets of Denver, Colorado. I wasn't just the one behind the line cooking, I was the line. I curated the menu, built our brand, and nurtured the soul of every single dish we served. People came from Boulder, from Aspen, even from out of state, just to taste our signature maple glazed duck and miso charred corn. I poured everything into this place: sweat, tears, recipes I dreamt up at 3 a.m. I even secured a $750,000 contract with Westlake Horizons, a luxury hotel group looking to feature our dishes across their properties. And yet, when it came time to choose a CEO, my parents, Thomas and Patricia Monroe, didn't choose me. They chose Brooke, my younger sister, the MBA grad from Wharton, who once tried to saute spinach in olive oil and set off the kitchen's fire alarm, twice. We were in the private room that day, surrounded by old family photos and framed reviews. Dad cleared his throat, that familiar formal tone that meant announcement incoming, and then he said it. We've decided it's time to name a CEO, and we believe Brooke is the right choice to lead Monroe's Hearth forward. I thought I misheard. Brooke looked up from her phone and smirked, like she'd just been crowned prom queen. I blinked, fork frozen halfway to my mouth. I had been managing the kitchen, the business, the brand, for over a decade. I brought in Julian Cross from Westlake Horizons. I was the one reporters asked to interview. Brooke? She had a polished LinkedIn profile and a few case studies. She has the business acumen, Dad said. We need a strategic mind to scale this restaurant. Strategic mind? I had doubled our revenue. I built a social following of 80,000 people who came for behind-the-scenes reels of our kitchen. And suddenly, I was just the chef? Brooke leaned back and tossed her hair. You're good in the kitchen, Sierra, but I know how to franchise. Think expansion, think systems, think scalability. My maple glazed duck, the dish that got us featured in Gastronome Quarterly, she called it unnecessary complexity. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound that tasted like betrayal. That duck is the reason we're on anyone's culinary map, I said. But sure, let's scrap it for some dry chicken sliders. Dad raised his hand like he always did to end an argument. This isn't personal, Sierra. It's about what's best for the business. No, it was personal, because this restaurant was built on my back, and suddenly I was just a line cook they tolerated. I looked to Mom, quiet as always, her eyes fixed on her coffee mug. She didn't say a word. I sat in silence the rest of that meeting, but in my head, I was already walking away. 3 days. That's how long it took for everything to change. I walked into Monroe's Hearth expecting the familiar buzz, knives hitting cutting boards, garlic sizzling, Ryan calling out orders, but the kitchen felt colder, like someone had turned down the fire in more ways than one. On the bulletin board, there it was, a printed document, full color, bold headline, Menu Streamlining, Phase 1. Underneath it, a list of items marked for removal: maple glazed duck, miso charred corn, wasabi tomato risotto. Each dish had a red slash through it. My dishes that made us who we were. Next to them, neat little notes. Too expensive, too niche, not scalable. Brooke's signature was at the bottom, perfect, clean, detached. I stood there stunned. Ryan noticed. He quietly walked over and peeled the paper off the board. You okay? He asked. I smiled, not out of amusement but disbelief. Looks like the kitchen takes orders from spreadsheets now. That afternoon, the phone calls started. Denise Hart, our seafood supplier, someone I'd worked with for years, called sounding confused. Sierra, your sister emailed. Wants to switch to frozen shrimp instead of our weekly delivery of fresh tiger prawns. Frozen shrimp? I said, shocked. She says it'll cut costs by 30%, but I thought you always insisted on fresh. I do, I replied, because our guests can taste the difference. She paused. Honestly, this doesn't feel like you. It wasn't, it was her numbers, her vision, and it was gutting everything I had built. That night, I sat at the little kitchen counter in my apartment. I pulled out my recipe binder, not the digital one, the one stained with oil, with notes scribbled in the margins. Each recipe was a story, a memory, a risk I took, a moment I created. And now, they were being phased out. I couldn't sleep, so I texted Tasha, my closest friend and mentor since culinary school. She owns the Lantern over in Lohi, a small place but respected, honest, real. Got time for fries and frustration, I wrote. She replied in under a minute. Always. We met at an old diner we used to crash at after night shifts. Still smelled like burnt coffee and too much nostalgia. Tasha slid into the booth and said, All right, spill it. So I did. The demotion, the disrespect, the erasure of everything I'd spent 14 years pouring into Monroe's Hearth. She didn't interrupt, just sipped her coffee, listening. Then she looked at me dead in the eye. Sierra, If this wasn't your family's restaurant, would you still be there? The question hit like a knife to the gut. I didn't hesitate. No. Then why is it different now? She asked softly. I didn't have an answer right away. I was so used to giving, to staying, to fixing. But she leaned in, her voice firmer now. You don't owe them your soul. That place may have your family's name, but it was built on your fire. Something shifted in me right then. A door creaked open. For the first time I wondered, not if I could leave, but what would happen if I did. The letter was short, 1 page, no fluff. Effective immediately, I resigned from Monroe's hearth, Sierra Monroe. I printed it out that morning, slipped it into a plain white envelope, and walked into the office tucked behind the kitchen, the one my dad, Thomas Monroe, used like a bunker. Stacks of receipts, fading clippings of early reviews, and the aroma of old coffee and authority. He looked up when I knocked. Sierra, you're early? We've got the Denver Gazette coming this afternoon, don't forget. I placed the envelope on his desk. I'm not staying for that. His smile faltered. He picked up the letter and read the first line. Then again, the silence stretched. This is a joke, right? He finally said. It's not. He stood, voice firm now. You can't just walk away. You're the backbone of this kitchen. I held his gaze. And yet I wasn't good enough to lead it. Don't twist this, he snapped. You're the one who said you loved the kitchen, that you didn't need a title. I laughed, quiet, bitter. I didn't need a title, I needed respect. He rubbed his face, pacing behind the desk. We made a call. Brooke has the vision to grow. Grow what? I cut in. A brand she barely understands? A menu she wants to gut for frozen convenience? His jaw clenched. He pointed to the door. You're making a mistake. I stepped back. Maybe, but at least it's mine. And I walked out. That night, I packed my life into 3 boxes and moved into a small apartment in Boulder. No balcony, no view, but quiet. For the first time in 14 years, I had silence. No orders to shout, no deadlines, no sauces burning on the stove. Just me. And the hollow ache of something unfinished. I turned off my phone, no email, no messages, just space. It lasted 4 days. On the 5th, I turned it back on. 37 missed calls, 48 unread messages, and a blinking voicemail inbox. Ryan, my former kitchen manager, left the first one. Sierra, it's chaos. Brooke scrapped the Friday tasting menu mid-service. Guests were confused. Staff's losing it. We need you. Just call me. Then Denise, our seafood supplier. Your sister wants to cancel the standing order. She asked for bulk frozen shrimp. Sierra, is this really happening? I sank onto the couch. My chest felt tight. Kristen, my top-line cook, messaged. She changed the risotto. Again. Customers are sending it back. I'm drowning, Sierra. They were unraveling. Not because I left, but because the people in charge now had no idea what made it all work. Then came the call from Julian Cross. His tone was clipped, formal, but I could hear the disappointment beneath it. Sierra, I met with Brooke yesterday. She gave us a slide deck on operational efficiency. Didn't know your menu, couldn't speak to the food, said the duck and scallop dishes were being pulled. I closed my eyes, my throat tightened. We signed because of you, he continued. Not cost per unit, not profit margins. Your food, your voice. He paused. We can't move forward. We're pulling the $750K contract. Silence on my end. I hate this, he added, but if you open your own place, call me. I'll be the first to sign. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, apartment dim. They had lost the deal. And the heart. The first voicemail came at 6:47 a.m. Sierra, it's Dad. There's confusion with the suppliers. Call me back when you can. I didn't. The second came around noon. Brooke tried to run a meeting with the kitchen. They're frustrated. She's not connecting. We need your insight. Still nothing. By midnight, a third. Westlake pulled out. $750,000 gone. Please, Sierra, we need you. I played that one twice. Not out of pity, but because for the first time, his voice cracked. The next morning, I stared at my phone for a full minute before answering his 4th call. Dad, I said. Sierra, thank God. His words spilled out fast. Everything's off the rails. Orders aren't being filled, staff is quitting, Brooke's overwhelmed, Julian called, said he's done with us. I know, I said, keeping my voice calm. He called me. There was a pause, sharp. He called you? He said Brooke pitched a fast food version of our restaurant. He asked about the duck. She didn't even know the ingredients. Dad sighed, deep and heavy. We thought we were doing the right thing. I almost laughed. You mean picking someone who's never led a dinner rush over the person who built the menu and secured your biggest deal? That right thing? She has the degree, Sierra. The board thought... Don't, I said, voice suddenly steel. Don't justify this with paper. I bled for that kitchen. You erased me like I didn't matter. He went quiet. We need you back, he said finally. I closed my eyes, let that sit in the air. If you need me, Dad, then it comes with terms. Anything, he said too quickly. Just name it. I stood from the couch, walking toward the kitchen window, letting the morning light fall on my face. First, I said, I'm not coming back as a chef under Brooke. Equal partnership, real authority. Decisions go through both of us. Okay, his voice wavered. Second, I want equity. My share of Monroe's hearth in writing, not some you'll get it one day promise. I want legal stake, now. Sierra, Third, I said, cutting in, I want public recognition, not a footnote, not Sierra handles the kitchen. I want the truth out there, that I built the menu, that I brought in Westlake, that I made us who we were. He exhaled, long, hesitant. You're asking for a lot. No, I said, I'm asking for exactly what I'm worth. Another silence. Let me talk to your mother, to Brooke, to our lawyer. You do that, I replied. And when you're ready, truly ready, to treat me like more than just the help, then we'll talk. Sierra, please, don't let pride ruin this. It's not pride, I said quietly, it's respect. And I hung up. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of anger, because of clarity. For so long I thought if I just worked hard enough, stayed loyal enough, they'd see me. But I realized something else. Sometimes people don't see your value until you stop offering it for free. We met at a small cafe in Fremont, halfway between Boulder and Denver, neutral ground. I got there early, picked a corner table near the window, ordered a double espresso, no sugar. My heart beat steady, but there was weight behind every breath. This wasn't just a meeting, this was my reckoning. At exactly 10 a.m., they walked in. My dad, Thomas Monroe, looked worn down, tie loosened, sleeves rolled. Brooke followed behind. No blazer today. Her hair pulled into a messy knot. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Good, I thought. Now we're all awake. They slid into the booth across from me. Sierra, Dad said with a stiff nod. Brooke didn't speak, just stared at the menu like it might rescue her. A server came, black coffee for him, latte for her. I already had mine. And then silence. I broke it. So, what do you want? Dad leaned in. We're in trouble. The kitchen's a mess. Orders are off. Staff is leaving and Westlake's gone. I know, I said calmly. Julian called me before he pulled the contract. Brooke flinched. What? Why didn't you tell us? Because I don't work for you anymore, I said. And he's my contact. Built over 3 years. Not something you inherit just because Dad said so. Her jaw tightened. You're acting like you didn't abandon us. I raised an eyebrow. You call that an invitation? You erased me from the company I built, and now you're asking me to come back and fix what you broke. Dad sighed. We're not here to fight, we need solutions. I nodded slowly, then looked them both in the eye. Okay, here are mine. I held up one finger. 1. I come back as an equal partner, not head chef under Brooke. I want executive authority, real decision-making power. If I'm fixing this, I'm leading it. Dad didn't speak, Brooke scoffed. Equal partner? You're out of your mind. I kept going. 2. I want equity, legal ownership, not some vague promise for the future. I built the value in that restaurant. I deserve my stake in it, in writing. Brooke shifted in her seat. You can't just walk out, then come back and demand half. I didn't walk out, I was pushed out, and I'm not demanding half, I'm demanding what I earned. I held up a third finger. 3. Public recognition. I want the truth said. In press, in meetings, in our narrative. I wasn't just the chef, I was the brand. Brooke opened her mouth, but Dad raised a hand. Let her finish. I leaned back. Those are my terms. I don't want sympathy. I want respect. If you're not ready to offer that, don't bother asking for my help. The silence that followed was thick. Brooke finally spoke. This is blackmail. I smiled, small, sharp. No, this is business. The only reason you're even at this table is because everything I built is falling apart in your hands. Dad looked down at his coffee, then up at me. If we agree to this, can you fix Westlake? I didn't blink. I can try. Julian still trusts me, but I won't pitch him half-truths or patchwork promises. I'll walk in only if I know I have the authority to back up what I say. He nodded slowly. Something in his eyes changed. Not softness, recognition. We'll talk to the lawyer, he said. I already have one, I replied. Hired him the day I left. Brooke stared at me, stunned. You planned this? No, I said, I prepared for this. I finished my espresso, set the cup down gently, then stood. I'll wait for the paperwork. You have my number. And I left them there, sitting in the ruins of the empire they built without me. The contract never got signed. Because somewhere between the lawyer calls and the whispered negotiations behind closed doors, I realized something. Even if they handed me the keys, even if I walked back into Monroe's hearth as co-owner, co-CEO, or whatever title they wanted to decorate it with, I didn't want it anymore. Because it would still be theirs, built on their foundation, decorated with their name, and haunted by the memory of what they did to me. A week after that cafe meeting, I met up with Tasha again. We sat in her restaurant after hours, lights dimmed, candles flickering. The kitchen still smelled of ginger and toasted sesame. She poured me tea and didn't ask anything. She just waited. I finally looked up. I don't want to go back. She nodded slowly, no surprise on her face, only softness. You've known that. You just didn't want to admit it. I spent 14 years building something I thought was mine, I said, my voice shaking slightly. But it never really was. It belonged to the name above the door, not the soul inside it. Tasha leaned forward. Then build something that's truly yours. That night I didn't sleep, but not out of stress, out of clarity. I stayed up sketching menus, brainstorming names, flipping through old journals. And before the sun rose, I knew I was going to open my own place. No compromises, no politics, no family board meetings. Just food, my food, and the people who believed in it. By the end of that week, I'd found a space, a former bakery on Capitol Hill in Denver. Rustic brick walls, beams with history, the kind of place that smelled like beginnings. I called Julian Cross. He answered on the second ring. Sierra, tell me you're not going back. I'm not, I said, but I am opening something new. There was a pause then. Now that is news I want to hear. Within 10 minutes, we'd outlined a plan. He offered to fund the first 3 months of inventory in exchange for exclusive menu items at 2 Westlake hotels. $400,000. Not quite the original contract, but this time it was mine. I called Kristen next. She answered on the first ring. You opening your own spot? She asked, hopeful. Yeah. Then I'm in. Say when. Then Ryan, then Denise. Like dominoes, they all fell back into place. Not because I begged, but because they knew what I stood for. Because we had built something real, long before Brooke came in with her spreadsheets. 2 months later, we opened Sierra's table. Opening night, every table was full. The kitchen moved like a symphony. The air was thick with roasted garlic, citrus glaze, and quiet triumph. Tasha stood in the corner, smiling with that proud, steady grin. Julian toasted with a glass of sparkling cider. To fire, he said, and the woman who never let hers go out. And me? I stood at the pass, plating dishes with the team I chose, in the space I built, under a name that belonged to no one but me. The first review came in a week after opening. Sierra's table brings back the soul of Monroe's hearth, only purer, sharper, and undeniably hers. It was printed in bold across the front page of the Denver Weekly Dish. I didn't cry, but I read it twice, once for the words, once for the wound it gently stitched closed. Every night our tables filled. Some were old customers who whispered, "We missed your food." Others were new, drawn in by word of mouth, by curiosity, by something they couldn't name but felt the moment they walked in. Kristen ran the hotline like a pro. Ryan handled front of house with the quiet confidence of someone finally seen. Even Denise, our seafood supplier, made her weekly deliveries with a wink. I don't deliver to Monroe's anymore, she told me. I deliver to you. 2 weeks in, my phone rang. Mom. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Her message was simple. Can we meet? Just the two of us? We met at a tea shop near City Park. No noise, no rush. Just 2 women, mother and daughter, sitting across from each other with years of silence between them. She stirred her chamomile tea like it was the only thing holding her together. I should have spoken up, she said finally. I stayed quiet. You ran that place. The kitchen. The partnerships. The vision. I knew it. But I let your father take the lead, like I always do. Her voice cracked. I grew up believing men lead and women support, but watching you walk away, I realized I'd failed you, and myself. I blinked. Not because I didn't believe her, but because for the first time in my life, she didn't sound like someone's wife. She sounded like herself. I'm proud of you, Sierra, she whispered. I never said it, but I should have shouted it. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the warmth of her fingers without the weight of disappointment attached to it. A few days later, my phone buzzed again. Brooke. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Her voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Sierra, I didn't expect it to be this hard. I didn't respond. I thought I could handle it, the pressure, the business, but I underestimated the heart behind it all, the heart you carried. There was a long pause. Then, can we talk? Not about the restaurant, just as sisters. I stared out the window, then said simply, yeah, we can start there. We met at a bar near Lohi, nothing fancy. She looked smaller, less polished, less sharp. We didn't talk about money or menus. We talked about childhood, about Grandpa Monroe, about how she always felt like she had to prove something. I was jealous of how natural it came to you, she admitted. I wanted to matter too, so I reached for what I could control. I didn't say much. Because the truth is, she did matter, just not in the way the restaurant needed. And now maybe she was learning to be something more than a title. As I left that night, I looked up at the stars and thought of the kitchen waiting for me in the morning. the heat, the rhythm, the flavor. My fire, not burned out but carried forward. He didn't call, he didn't text, he just showed up. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon. Lunch rush had died down. The kitchen was resetting. And I was at the pass, checking final plating on a new charred citrus halibut when Kristen tapped me on the shoulder. Sierra, there's a man at the bar asking for you. Said his name's Thomas. I didn't move right away, just stood there staring at the plate. Then I wiped my hands, straightened my apron, and walked out. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but somehow less towering, less certain. My father, Thomas Monroe, stood at the end of the bar, holding his hat in both hands like a nervous guest at a wedding. He turned when he saw me. "This place," he said quietly, "is something else." I nodded. "Thanks." There was a beat of silence. Then, "Looks like you didn't need us after all." I met his eyes. "No, Dad, I needed you to see me, and you didn't." He swallowed hard, sat down at the bar stool, still holding the hat. "I was wrong," he said, voice rough. "I thought degrees and titles mattered more than instinct, more than grit. I didn't realize how much you carried, until it was gone." He didn't cry, he didn't beg. He just sat there, looking like a man finally realizing what he'd broken, and who had fixed it without him. I poured him a glass of our house wine, set it gently in front of him. "Stay for dinner," I said. And he did. He didn't offer advice. He didn't talk about business. He just watched, listened, ate. He came back the next month, and the next. No fanfare, just a quiet table in the corner, a plate of whatever we were testing that week, and sometimes a story about Grandpa Monroe, back when the kitchen was nothing but 2 burners and a prayer. Brooke visited a few weeks later, not to take notes, not to pitch ideas, just to eat, to sit beside me, to ask questions, this time with humility. And slowly, a new version of our family began to form. Not perfect, not polished, but honest. Meanwhile, Sierra's table thrived. We expanded to brunch service. Julian helped land a seasonal tasting collaboration with Westlake's Aspen Resort. Our reservation list grew faster than I could keep up with. But more than that, something deeper settled inside me. Peace. Not the kind that comes from success, but the kind that comes from alignment. From building something that's yours. From no longer shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. From finally saying, "This is who I am, and this is what I deserve." Some nights after the kitchen closes, I walk the floor alone. I run my fingers along the edges of the tables we built by hand. I breathe in the scent of roasted garlic and rosemary still lingering in the air. And I whisper a silent thank you to the girl I used to be, the one who almost stayed quiet forever. If you're listening to this, and you've ever been overlooked, undervalued, or told that your work is not enough, I hope you remember this. You don't have to wait for permission to matter. You just have to stop giving your power away. And sometimes, the strongest thing you'll ever do is walk away from a table and build one of your own. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't walking away. It's believing you're allowed to. But when they don't see your worth, when they silence your voice, when they hand your seat to someone else, maybe that's life inviting you to build a new table, one with your name on it, your fire in it, your truth at the center. This story isn't just Sierra's. It's for anyone who's ever been told they were too emotional, too difficult, too behind the scenes. It's for the ones who gave their all and got overlooked. But here's the truth. You are not invisible, you are not replaceable, and you are never too late to start again on your terms. If this story spoke to something inside you, we'd love to hear your voice. Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe to Sweet Revenge Happy Ending, where we tell the stories they never expected and the endings they never saw coming. Because the best revenge isn't loud, it's living free, living seen, living true.